Hello and welcome everyone. Today we are going to look at the solution of the challenge that I posted to the channel last week. Before going directly to the solution, let's jump into Excel and try to remember what was the challenge itself. On the left hand side we have a table containing the data for 20 employees. Now I have a small table containing only one column. I need to use this table in order to search inside the employees table. The output of the search will be coming in this table, and this table is connected to Power Query. Let's try to search by name at the beginning. So I'm going to copy any name of this table. Let's take Ibrahim Amr. Right click and refresh, and here you go. You have the data for Ibrahim Amr, ID number, the band, and also the department information technology. What if I need to search using the ID number? All I need to do is to change the header of the column. So I'm going to type here ID, and let me select any ID, let's say 1005, and hit enter. Right click and refresh, and here you go. You have the employee with the ID number 1005. What if I need to search in the band? Let me try the band. I'm going to change the header again to band, and let me select something like band A. Right click and refresh. Here you go. You have all the employees working in band A. I can add more bands. Let me put something like band D. Right click and refresh, and here you go. I have all the employees with bands A and D. Also, I can just search with the department. Let me type here department. Let me select supply chain and finance. Right click and refresh, and here you go. All employees working in departments supply chain and finance. That's why I call this flex filter. You can just change the header of the search column and then add the data you need to search for, and all done automatically using Power Query. Actually, the solution will be based on two methods. First one will be using the M language and some M language functions. The second solution will be based on merge queries. I'm going to start by the M language, and also I'm going to focus on the M language, and at the end of the video I'm going to present how we can solve it using merge queries. Actually, all the solution came in these two methods, the M language and also merge queries. That's why I want to present both for you. Let's go directly and look at the first solution. At the beginning, let's try to break down the problems that we need to solve in order to understand the approach for this solution. So the ultimate objective is to try to filter down this table. In order to filter any table, I need to use a function, and this function will be basically Table.SelectRows. Let's try to think about the requirements for Table.SelectRows. Table.SelectRows would require me at the beginning a table. So I have the table, no problem. Here is my table, and it requires also a condition. So I need to build some sort of a condition. So let's think about the condition. The condition is try to compare the data. Let's look at this example. I need to compare the data that I have inside the column band. Here is my column band with the data inside the filter table. You can see that in filter table I have only a single column, also called band. So I need to compare this data. In order to perform this comparison, I'm going to check line by line. So I'm going to check the first line. For instance, the first line, the name is Ibrahim Kamil, ID 1001, and also I have the band, and the band is D. I need to check this single value of D inside a list of values that I have here. The list of values is A and B. For this case, D is not inside the list of A and B, so I'm going to exclude the D, or I'm going to exclude the first row. Let's check the second one. The second one, Ihab Nader, the value of the band is A, and here you go, I have the A inside the list of A and B, and in this case I'm going to include this record, and so on and so forth till the end of the table. So I need some sort of a function that can compare a single value for each and every line with the values inside a list, and the list is the values inside the search table or the column or the search column. So for this kind of operation or for this kind of comparison, I need another function, and this function is called List.Contains. So now I need two functions, Table.SelectRows in order to filter down the table, and to build the criteria for this filtration, I need to use the List.Contains. Now let's start to think about the requirements for List.Contains. List.Contains will require a value. I have no problem. I have all the values here inside this column, but also it requires a list. you can see that the input will be inside a table, and this table will contain a single column. So I need a function to convert the values inside this column into a list, and this is another function called Table.Column. So the Table.Column will take a column from any table and convert it into a single list. Next, let's try to think about the requirements for Table.Column. Table.Column actually will ask me for two things. First one is, where is the table that you want to extract a column from it? Actually, the table is very obviously will be the filter table, so I'm going to give the name of the table, and this is no problem at all. The issue will come when I try to feed in the name of the column, because the name of the column will be changing every time I do a search. So I need something dynamic to identify the name of the column. This will be basically another function, and this function will be called Table.ColumnNames. So the Table.ColumnNames will help me to dynamically identify the name of the column coming from the input of the user about the filter table or the table containing the filter data. So now we have four functions: Table.SelectRows in order to perform the filtration, List.Contains to identify the criteria, Table.Column to extract the list of values that I'm going to use in the comparison, and Table.ColumnNames in order to dynamically identify the header of the column of the filter table. The final part of our plan is to think about the technique that we are going to perform the filtration with. What I mean by the technique, I mean that because of the header of this column will be always dynamic, I need something to help me which column exactly from this table will be used in the comparison. In order to do so, I'm going to use a very simple technique. I'm going to create another column here in this table. So this column will be a duplicate of one of this column. The header of this column will be static, meaning that let me call it the filter column or the custom column. And this header name will be static, but I'm going to bring in the data for this column from the column that matches the header of this column. Meaning that if the header of the column of the filter table will be bands, so I'm going to fill in here all the data from the band column under the new column header, which will be custom or filter data or whatever. If the data is coming from the department, I'm going to fill in the data of the department, and so on and so forth. This will help me to do the comparison inside the Table.SelectRows without any problems. Actually, by the end of the video, I'm going to show you how we can do the same without adding this column, but this column will help us a lot to understand the logic together. And in order to create this additional column, I'm going to use another function, and this function this time will be called Record.Field. Record.Field will help me to fill in the data from a specific field. And now we have 5 functions. As you can see, we are going to use all of them inside our solution. Let's go directly to Power Query and try together to execute this plan. I already sent both tables into Power Query. The first one is the data table. If you look at the right, I have the name of this query data_mcode, because at end of this session we are going to look at another solution using merge queries. I have only 2 steps, the source and also the change type, and I'm fine with both. Both are okay for me. The second one is the filter data table or the filter table. Here is the name of the query, and I also have 2 steps, source and change type. However, in this query, I need to get rid of the change type. Why? Because when the user changes the header of the column, this query will break. As you can see, the name of the column is hard-coded right here, and I don't need to specify the data type for this column, so I'm going to get rid of the change type step. Let me go back to the data table. I'm going to start by just trying to add the new column. I'm going to do some manual work, and then as we go, we are going to automate this work. So I'm going to start by adding the new column right here, and this column will bring the data that I need to compare with the data in the filter table. So I'm going to do it manually, and then we are going to do some changes as we go. So let's start. In order to add a new column, let me go to add column. And from add column, I'm going to select custom column. This will open the custom column window. I'm going to leave the name of the new column custom, no problem, because this will not be a part of the final product. So I'm going to just leave it as it is. And in this column, I need to bring the data from the other columns. In order to do so, I'm going to use the shortcut underscore. Underscore will represent the entire record. So for example, for line number 1, the record will be name Ibrahim, ID 1001, band D, department marketing. Second line name will be Ihab, ID will be 1002, band will be A, and department will be supply chain, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to click on OK, and let's see what will happen. I will have a new column called custom, and each and every line containing a record. If you check the first one, you will see that I have the data correspondent to the same line. But this is not exactly what I want. I need to put here in this custom column the data that I'm going to compare with the other table. In order to do so, I need to use our first function here, which is basically Record.Field. So let me edit the step. So I'm going to get rid of this underscore, and I'm going to use the function Record.Field. Then I'm going to open a bracket. The first requirement is a record. The record can be fed by the shorthand underscore, so I'm going to give him the underscore. The underscore will represent each and every record for each and every line. And then comma, second requirement, what is the field name as text. So I need to put it into double quotation, and I'm going to do it manually at the beginning, and then we are going to automate it as we go. So the information that we need to bring here will be coming from the field band. So I'm going to write band and then close the bracket and click on OK. And here you go. You have inside a new column called custom all the data inside the field band from the original table. So the next step is try to automate the hard coding that we did right now. If you look at the step that we just performed, you will see that I hard coded the name of the field. In order to have this query working dynamically, I need to replace this hard coding by something that can grab the name of the column dynamically. I'm going to close this window, and for sure I can get the name of the header from the filter table. You'll see that I have only one column called band inside this table. So let me go back. I need to have a new step. I'm going to use the fx here to add a new custom step. I need here to reference the other query inside a function, and this function will be Table.ColumnNames. Inside Table.ColumnNames, I need to feed in the name of the query or the name of the table. This table will be for sure the output of the filter table query. Then I'm going to click on the check mark, and here you go. I have a list with a single item, and this item is basically the header of the column. In my case, I need this to be a value, something like a text value, not a list. So I need to extract this value from this list. In order to do so, I'm going to use the curly braces. Once I open the curly braces, I need to feed in the number of the line or the number of the record. For sure, we know that Power Query is 0 based. So in order to grab the first line, I'm going to type 0 and then the check mark once more. And here you go. You have something called band, a value called band, and you have a new step. As you can see here, I can just right click and rename. Let me give it a meaningful name. Let's say the column name. Now I need to feed in this column name inside the add custom step. At the beginning, let me just change the order. I'm going to grab this column name on top of the add custom. For sure, when I check the add custom, it will be broken. Why? Because it's now referencing, as you can see in the formula bar, it is referencing what? It is referencing the previous step, which is column name. This is not correct. I need to make sure that it is still referencing the change type step here. So I'm going to do this manually. I'm going to just double click here and try to feed in the name of the step, which is basically the change type, and then the check mark. Now everything is working good. The next step is to try to automate this step. As we mentioned, I need to replace the band with the output of the column name step. So I'm going also to edit here, delete the band, and I'm going to type column name and then click on OK. And here you go. I have the same result. However, this information is coming now automatically. Based on what? Based on the header of this column. So if this header is changed to something like department, and I check later here, I will see that the data coming in the custom column will be the department data, not the band data, and so on and so forth. Now, based on the custom column, I'm going to try to do any filtration and try to look at the auto code that will be generated by this step. So from the custom column, let me just select A. Here you go, a new step called filter rows, and you can see that the table is filtered down to only 3 lines. Let's check on the formula bar what we have inside the formula bar. You will see that we have the Table.SelectRows function. The first requirement will be a table. This table will be the previous step added custom, and then the condition. Before condition, for sure we have the each keyword. Each keyword is saying that this will happen for each and every line in this table. And then I have the condition, and the condition is basically comparing the custom column, the value inside the custom column, each and every line of data inside the custom column with the value A. As you remember, we need to feed in another function inside the Table.SelectRows, which is basically the List.Contains. So the List.Contains will help me to check each and every value in the column custom with another list. So we need to think about the requirement of the List.Contains, which is basically the list of data that we already have in our filter table here. So what I need to do for the moment, I need to go and try to separate these two items into a new list. I need to take only the data without the column, and I need to feed it inside a list, so I can use this list inside the List.Contains function. Let me go back to the data mcode query, and I'm going to add another custom step, fx, and I'm going to use the function Table.Column. So let me delete this, and then Table.Column. Table.Column will require two things. First thing will be a table. The table for sure will be the filter table, and then comma, second requirement will be the column name as text. I already have this value of column name already in the previous step that we already did together, which is basically the column name, as you can see here. So I can just reference this inside my function. So I'm going to edit here and type something like column name, and then hit the check mark, and here you go. I have list of values, and this list of values contain the data that I need to compare with the custom column inside my original data table. Now I need to give a meaningful name to the last step, the custom one. So I'm going to select, right click and rename, and let me call it filter data. Now we need to do another arrangement, another sorting of the steps. So I need to take this above the added custom step. So I'm going to put it up here. Let me make sure that the rest of the steps is working properly. So now the added custom is working okay. However, as you can see here, the Record.Field function picked up the filter data. It should pick up the column name. So let me quickly edit here and type column name, the check mark. So now I think it is working properly, no problem at all. And then the filter step is working perfectly, no problem at all. Finally, now we need to just automate the filter that we did it manual, and then all will be sorted out. I'm going to expand the formula bar, and I'm trying to change here. I'm going to change this condition. So I'm going to select the condition and delete. And as we agreed, we are going to use the List.Contains. So the List.Contains will start by the comparison list. So the data that we need to filter, the data coming from the filter table. So I need to feed in here the filter data step, and then comma. The second will be the value that we need to compare. The value for sure is coming from the custom column. So I can just open a square bracket and type here custom, close the bracket, and let me do a check mark. Looks like I have a spelling mistake. Yes, you can see that the data is missing an A at the end. So I can just put the A, check mark, and now it is working perfectly. Here I have A and B, and here is the filtration. The custom is coming with A and B. I think so far so good. Let me just get rid of the custom column. No need for this in the final output. So I'm going to remove, and then home, close and load to. Currently I have two queries. Let me just put all of them to only create a connection and click on OK. And then I'm going to select the data mcode, right click and load to. Table existing worksheet, and let me put it in column J and click on OK. And here you go. And let's try, is this working really dynamically or not? I'm going to select this time department with marketing and supply chain, Control C, and then Control V, right click and refresh. Here you go. Now I have the filter working on the column department, and this is working perfectly automatic. However, I have a small problem here. Suppose that if I change the marketing to something like a small m, which is still marketing but with a small letter, right click and refresh, it will ignore the marketing and it will only filter on supply chain. So I need something to fix this, and this is pretty easy. Let me go back to our Power Query editor, and in my filter rows step, I'm going up to filter rows step. You will see that I have the List.Contains. First parameter will be the filter data, second parameter will be the custom, and then after custom I'm going to add another comma, and here I can add a third parameter, which is basically equation criteria. Inside equation criteria I can use something called compare.ordinal ignore case, and this will make List.Contains to ignore the case sensitivity or to be case insensitive, and then the check mark. I can get back my marketing search, as you can see here, close and load. Now it's working perfectly. Even I try something like the bands. Let me put back the bands. D small, A small, right click and refresh, still working perfectly. Now we are back on the Power Query editor, and I have a question to ask myself. Can I make this shorter? Can I make this more optimized? Yes, I can do so. Actually, the trick of adding a new column is not very necessary. Why? Because I can just identify this data. If you look at the data coming from Record.Field, if I can just identify this data without adding a physical new custom column, I can also perform the filtration. So let me try to change this step into directly the filtration step. So I'm going to replace the function that I already have here, which is Table.addColumn, into the filtration function, which is basically Table.SelectRows. So let's try this together. I'm going to change this. I'm going to select and type Table.SelectRows. And then let me go step by step inside the function and try to adapt it to match the Table.SelectRows. So at the beginning, I need a table. Here is my first requirement, which is basically having a table. So no problem, I have the table here. And then the second parameter will be the name of the new column. So in case of Table.SelectRows, I need to get rid of this parameter. So let me do so. I'm going to get rid of this. Table.SelectRows will require each. This is fine. And after each, I need the condition. So here is the data that I need to compare with. So before the Record.Field, I can directly use List.Contains, open a bracket, and then I need the list of data to compare with. This is nothing but the step that we have here, which is basically filter data. So I'm going to edit once more and type here filter data and then comma. The second required would be the value. The value is coming from Record.Field, so no problem at all. Then the third parameter will be nothing but ignoring the case sensitivity, which will be basically compare.ordinal ignore case, and then close the bracket for Table.SelectRows, and let's try to see what will happen. Here you go, I have exactly the same result, and I managed to get rid of the rest of the steps, which is basically two steps: filter rows and removed columns. Let me just try to get rid of them. For sure now they are not working properly. Delete and close and load, and now I am good to go. Everything is working perfectly, and I managed to optimize this code, reduce the number of columns, and you can see if I go back here, you can see it's a very simple query now. 1, 2, 3, 4, only 5 steps, and all good. So the final part of this video is to try to solve the same issue using merge queries. So for the sake of time, I'm going to have a duplicate from data mcode, duplicate, and let me change the name to data merge queries. Let's check all the steps that we need, and we'll get rid of the steps that we need to replace. So at the beginning, I have the source, no problem. Change type is okay. Column name, I'm going to use the column name for sure. Filter data, I'm going to delete, and add custom also I'm going to delete. So I have only 3 steps here. So at the beginning, I'm going to do the merge manually, and then we'll think about how to automate this, and this will be very simple. So I'm going back to the change type here, the table that I have, and I'm going to perform the merge queries here. So going to home and then combine merge queries, this will open. Actually, I need to confirm that I need to insert the step, and then this will open the merge query window. On the top, I have my query, and I can select the other table or the other query from the bottom half. Let me select filter data. Now I have the band. Actually, we have an issue here. We need to go back and change this band to capital letters. So let me do this quickly and we'll come back. Here you go. I have now the 2 letters uppercase. So I can just perform this merge manually, and then we'll see how can we automate this together. So at the beginning, I need to select the matching column, which is basically the band. So I'm going to select band from the first table and also band from the second table. I can also decide the join kind. The default for sure will be left outer. However, left outer will not work very perfectly. I'm going to leave it as is like now and see how we can change it later. Click on OK, and here you go. I have a new column. This column is my filter coming from the filter table, and each and every line of this new column will contain a table. If we have matching, we'll have a value. So let me check. The first one, D is matching D, so it's okay. A is matching A, no problem. And then D is matching D as well. The fourth line, B, there is no matching for B in our list. If you check here, we don't have B in this list. In the fourth column, as we just mentioned, if you check again the fourth column, there is no value, so it is an empty value. So in order to perform or to complete the filtration, I need first to expand. So I'm going to expand here. I need only the band, it's only one column. Click on OK, insert step, no problem. I have either a value or null, so I need to get rid of the null because the null is representing lines with no matching. So I'm going to just get rid of the null, and I have my table filtered. Also, I need to get rid of this column, right click and remove. So I managed to perform the filtration in a correct way. Now I just need to automate what I just did. So I'm going back to merge queries. If I expand the formula bar, you will see that I have couple of hard-coded values, which is basically the name of the column. You can see here band, and also you can see the band here. And I can just get rid of this hard coding by just feeding in the column name that I have in the last step right here. So in order to do so, I'm going to start by just changing the order. So I'm going to bring the column name on top of the merge queries. For sure the merge query will be broken. Let me just fix it quickly. I just need to change the column name to the previous step, which is basically the change type. So I'm going to type here change type, check mark, and now all is working perfectly. Let me do the automation part. In the merge queries, I'm going to change these two values, the band here, the name of the column, and also the name of the column from here. I'm going to change it by the dynamic value coming from the column name step. I'm going to do so here as well, and check mark, and all good to go. I can just load my query like this. However, I think again here I can do some optimization for this query. You can see that we have a lot of steps. I want to stop this query up to the merge query step, and I can do so by just changing the join kind. If you remember, we selected the join kind left outer, and what left outer is doing, as you can see here, it is checking each and every line from this table. Start with this column and then check the filter table. If there is a match, as you remember, if there is a match like here, you will see a value. If no match, there is no value. However, if I change this to right outer, it will do the vice versa. It will start from the filter table, and then it will bring me only the matching lines. So let's try together to do it manually here. I'm going to the formula bar. I'm going to select the join kind left outer, and I'm going to change it to right outer. Click on OK, and here you go. I have only the matching data. If you check any table of these tables, you will find only the matching data or the matching items. So in this case, no need for the rest of the steps. I'm going to select the next one, right click and delete until end, and click on delete to confirm, and I'm good to go. Even no need to delete the merge column because it will not appear once I load the data. So I'm going to close and load to table existing worksheet column O, and click on OK. And here you go, exactly the same result. The only catch here, if I change this to like a small case in this D letter, and then data and refresh all, here you go. Our first query is working perfectly. However, the second query is not working as good. So the only solution for this is to try to search with the proper case. If it is uppercase, you have to use uppercase. If it is lowercase, you need to use the lowercase. If you try to solve this using something like fuzzy matching, it will work. However, you will find some problems because the type of the column, you can see that I have some columns with type text and some columns with type numbers, and the fuzzy matching will require all the time text fields, not number fields. And even if you change this to something like text in a form of a number, it will not give you the correct result as well. The best solution for me is using the M code. You can try the merge queries, however, you may stuck with the case sensitivity issue. Before closing this video, a big shout for each and everyone contributed to this channel: Shihab الصغير, Zevizdana Agatix, Fathi Taha, Muhammad Ashraf Al-Haggar, Azim Muhammad, Milind Kapadia. A big thank you for each and every one of them. That was all for today. Thank you so much for your time. If you liked the video, please like it, subscribe. leave me a comment and share the video, and we'll catch you in the next challenge, and bye.